How's it going, everybody? Alex Comstock here. And in this video, I want to talk about how to kill a buck in September. Now, early season is one of my favorite times to hunt. When this video drops, I'll probably either be in North Dakota or just wrap it up my trip in North Dakota. So hopefully I can actually kill a buck early September. But September deer hunting comes down to, and it gets talked about a million times, but it's for a good reason. It's down to food and bed. So if you can pin down where a deer's feeding and where a deer's bedding, or at least a general area of bedding, it's going to be a little bit harder to pin down, you're going to set yourself up for success. And the question is, how do you intercept that buck, or how do you get them in daylight? There's a lot of things that I want to talk about here. So first off, scouting is huge. I use a couple different methods of scouting. First one is going to be scouting from a distance. Anywhere that you hunt or you have the opportunity to glass from a distance is going to help you out tremendously. So I like to, crop fields, bean fields. If you live somewhere where you can get to a clear cut and maybe there isn't any ag, anywhere you can get eyes on a deer and actually see what they're doing, because trail camera data is great, which we're going to cover here. But if you can actually watch a buck, so when I'm in North Dakota, if I can be glassing a bean field, see how a deer comes out, see how he kind of acts, see where he heads, and then if I'm able to watch him do that more than once, now I've got something to really go off of, because I can see how he's entering an area. I can, judge based on what the wind direction was when he did it. If the wind direction's that same wind, and when I try hunting it, where I can set up, all these different factors fall into play. But essentially, scouting from a distance is a huge part of how I can try to kill a buck in September, and it's one of the best tools for helping me get in a position when it comes to trying to kill an early season buck. With that, the next thing is trail cameras. Trail cameras are huge. Now, depending when your season opens is going to be, kind of depends on how to use that trail camera data. So again, for example, in North Dakota, we hunted the very first week of September. And so that camera data, like throughout the summer that you're getting, you actually can use that, because hopefully those bucks are still going to be in the very end of their summer pattern. But say your season opens, like in Minnesota, my season opens on September 16th. It's a little bit different, because those bucks shed their velvet, and some deer are going to be kind of shifting home ranges. Some deer kind of stick in their home range. So that trail camera data can be a little bit more iffy. And so it's kind of understanding when your season opens, and if you have history with the buck, if he shifts or anything like that. Like I've got a buck in Minnesota this year that I'm going to be after, that I've got multiple years of history with. And it seems like he doesn't really shift much come September. He just, it seems like he usually stays in September and then actually does like a shift in October and then comes back for the rut. So I know that I'm gonna have to get him right away if I'm gonna kill him. And so trail camera data is definitely important, but you need to know how to interpret it. And it's just so different for every property, different for every deer. But having that trail camera data is important, and I definitely use it to help myself try and kill a buck in September. The next thing that I want to talk about is looking at underrated food sources or hard mass or anything back in the timber that can be quote unquote staging area. Because ag fields get a lot of hype, and rightfully so, but there are spots where my mind immediately goes back to the buck that Luke killed last year in September. He killed it in a stand of oaks. They were dropping a ton of acorns, and deer were filing in there before heading out to their main destination food source for the evening. And so looking at anything like that, do you have any areas where there's apple trees, any areas with oak trees, any hard mass that deer are really focusing in on early in the year before kind of hitting their main food source is something definitely to key in on, and something you should be thinking about. Another thing when it comes to September hunting is bucks are just on a pattern. If you can figure out what they're doing, you have a chance to kill them. Like in October, it can be a lot harder to get them in daylight. In November, they're running like crazy, and who knows when they're going to be where. But in September, the thing I love about early season hunting is if you can find any type of pattern, whether that be through trail cameras, scouting, driving around, there's been so many different ways that we've found bucks that if you can find a buck doing the same thing more than once, I call that some type of pattern that you can play off of. And if you can capitalize on that pattern, you're giving yourself at least a chance in September. Another thing that I want to touch on that I find severely underrated in the month of September especially is mock scrapes. We use mock scrapes kind of all throughout the fall, and they just get a lot of run in October and into November. But if you can get a buck hitting a scrape in September, I think your chances are you've got actually a decent chance of killing that buck, especially if they hit it in daylight. And so what we like to do is run our mock scrapes early in this season, closer to bedding areas, and not on like the field edges. And we'll run a lot of mock scrapes, and we'll use buck fever a lot in those scrapes, which is just a scent you can get, like spray on the overhanging branch and on the ground. And if you can get a buck hitting a mock scrape in September, I mean, you are in the game, at least in my opinion. And it's something that I like to use and a tool that I think people don't use enough early in the year. The last thing that I want to cover about September that I haven't really touched on yet, that is actually a vital and huge part of early season hunting in my book, is definitely playing that weather. If you can, and it gets talked about a lot, I know, but it's important. If you look at the weather, and like for a lot of people, maybe you work, you can't take days off, you can only hunt weekends, but look at that extended forecast and you see a day where it goes from maybe 80 degrees to 65. You need to hunt. You need to hunt those days. If you can slip out of work early, I killed a buck in 2018 and it was the first week of October, so not quite September, but similar. We had a huge temp drop. It was really warm that year. And so it was pretty much like September, and we had a huge temp drop. I was able to sneak out of work early. That buck has showed up in daylight for the first time in like 2 weeks. At last light, I was able to kill him. So use that weather to your advantage. If you're able to get out in a cold front, I highly suggest hunting on the front end and the back end of a cold front. A storm system, any big weather system in September is really gonna help your odds of, especially in a lot of situations, you might have a trail cam pick or you might have multiple trail camera photos of a buck, maybe hitting a food source or a scrape right after dark. Anything that can get that buck up just a little bit early is gonna put you in a better position for success. So really keep your eyes on that weather, and it can definitely help you. So those are a few things that I want to cover when it comes to trying to kill a buck in September. Again, if you're not hunting somewhere in September, you're missing out. I love September deer hunting. It's one of my favorite times to hunt. And I think it can be a great opportunity for you to kill a big buck. So I appreciate you watching this video. If you do me a huge favor and hit that like and subscribe below, it always means the world to me, and I'll see you here on the next video.